This is Riley Bennett here of LivingThatLife.com, and I am here with the one and only Luke Radowski of WeAreChange.org. I've watched Luke's channel for probably about 6 years now. He's probably in the top 5 channels if you were to look at watch time. And that says a lot because I watch a lot of YouTube. So Luke is one of the OGs when it comes to independent journalism, and his show, like I said, is one of my favorite shows on YouTube. Someone actually asked me this once. They're like, so if I want to know what's going on in the world, is there like one show that like kind of summarizes it all so I don't have to watch the news? I was like, actually, yeah. There's not only Luke's channel, but there's a lot on YouTube, but I think Luke's is the best. He kind of covers the major issues that are going on in the world that are not necessarily covered in the mainstream media, aka TV. And knowing me, I'm a huge product of the YouTube revolution. My YouTube channel, my whole life is because of YouTube. Let's be honest, people sharing what's possible as far as this digital nomad life. But also the other side of the YouTube revolution is the truth revolution, and spreading truth, so many obvious truths out there that you just won't see on TV. And Luke is the OG. Follow his channel. He's got over 500,000 subscribers, and you've been doing this for, I know you covered 9/11. Were you like a full-blown, were you a journalist at that time, or did that get you started?
I'm still, you know, teenager.
You're still a teen.
Yeah.
Because you're from New York.
Yeah.
And you were there on 9/11. And was that one of the things that spurred you into journalism?
Well, yeah, of course, many different ways, being impacted in the community, and knowing a lot of people had to face the severe ramifications from it. So yeah, I mean, that was a major part. That was a big wake-up call for a lot of people, especially me, being like, hey, things are not what they seem to be, as told to us officially. So that was a big wake-up call. Yeah,
for sure. And actually, we're going to get into it in a little bit. Just recently here, a big new study, some big breaking news came out regarding 9/11. We'll get to that in a second. So how did 9/11, was that kind of your red pill? And like how shortly after 9/11 did you kind of discover, okay, the official story is malarkey, there's way more truth to this, like why is the mainstream not talking about this? And kind of when it's in your face, it's blatant about how it was obviously a false flag to get into the Middle East and start wars. It was war games. How soon after 9/11 did you kind of realize that? And
not very long. At first I bought the story, officially hook, line, and sinker, ready to sign up for the military. Luckily I was too young.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of psychological warfare. It was a lot of propaganda that day. Especially being in New York, seeing the dust all over my neighborhood, all over the cars there. It was
Jesus.
Yeah. Seeing a lot of the pain and suffering up front. It was pretty surreal. But it took knowing a lot of the first responders. It took knowing some of the family members to really hit home that the government lied a lot during that day, and they're not telling us the full story about what really happened. And then once you get hit with that reality, I stood behind them, and I supported them, and I did events for first responders, for rescue workers, with family members and those closely affected by it. Simply asking questions, important ones that the government refused to answer, and the mainstream media made fun of us for even asking. Important questions that could prevent another 9/11 from happening, important questions that could actually hold people accountable, important questions that really were instrumental to ask at that specific time that no one wanted to, everyone was afraid to ask because of the ridicule. And it's like, okay, we're standing with the victims here, we're standing with first responders, we're standing with people who survived, we're standing with people who lost their family members because of this, and the mainstream media still was able just to ridicule everyone. That's when I was understanding that it's an important job that the media has. It's the most important job. Journalism is the issue that has the biggest effect on everyone. Bad journalism costs lives. It has the biggest profound effects on us. good journalism, you know, saves lives and informs us and educates us and keeps us aware and prepared for the worst things in life.
Yeah.
So you know, this is when I kind of made the transition away from kind of activism for first responders specifically towards journalism, because it's a lot easier to show people the truth rather than just tell them.
Yeah. And so, you know, if you look into it, the obvious questions were not being asked about 9/11, which is it's the most pivotal, you know, event of this time. And one of the key questions that a lot of people don't even know about about the third tower on 9/11 and why did it collapse? There was no plane that hit it. So I ask people like this, like occasionally, like it's a nice little like eye opener. How many towers fell on 9/11? People were like 2. Oh no, it's actually 3. And why did the third one collapse? Nothing hit it. The official story was the Tower 7, it's a huge building, collapsed because of fires. And that's, if you have any common sense, a steel building cannot collapse from a fire. It's never happened in history. Guess what? So everyone has kind of already knew this, and you know, the 9/11 truths, you know, everyone on YouTube kind of knows this. Of course, it looks exactly like a controlled demolition. Breaking study just recently of University of Alaska Fairbanks, major university, their study was released that says the cause of the collapse was due to a simultaneous failure of every column in the building, aka a controlled demolition, obviously. So anyways, this is like just a scientific study that just comes out and says, actually, here's the obvious truth, it was a controlled demolition. So after you realize that, oh yeah, Tower 7 was controlled demolished, just look at the many videos on YouTube, it came down like this perfectly. Same thing with the main towers, which are those, if you have common sense, those were obviously controlled demolished as well. So after you realize that, oh, there were explosives set up in the building, so obviously this thing was a pre-planned thing. And of course you go down the wormhole from there and just realize like, oh yeah, it's like the US is still in the Middle East, this is 18 years later, like, oh yeah, it's kind of obvious. But the main public, the masses don't know this, because I was watching James Corbett last night, one of his recent videos. Check out him, he does great work, and he makes a great point. All that the mainstream has to do is not mention it. This study has not been mentioned anywhere in the mainstream media. Yeah,
and it's a 4-year study at the University of Alaska that was conducted along the lines with architects and engineers, professionals in architecture, professionals in engineering, who are putting their reputation as professionals, thousands of them, on the line, saying, hey, we're using science here to question this event. 4 years this study took place. 4 years of investigating, researching, looking at everything, and they say the official story that fire brought down that building absolutely makes no sense at all, which is the official NIST approved kind of version, and it contradicts everything. And they said something happened that simultaneously brought down all the supporting structures in that building at the same time to make it collapse within itself. So again, there's so many inconsistencies from this major event that you're not allowed to question because the mainstream media doesn't want you to question. It's so stupid. It's ridiculous.
And I'll link to James Corbett's video as well. He makes a great point that just the fact that there's an editor at CNN and all these major news networks that gets to pick and choose which stories get brought into the public consciousness just says right there that it's so controlled. It's propaganda. And another recent video he put out about publicly stating now that they're going to be censoring disinformation more on social media. That's horrible. The real disinformation is the TV. It's not necessarily that they're lying, but it's that they're not covering the full truth. And this is a philosophical debate, but what's worse, lying or omitting key truths and key facts? They're kind of the same philosophically. So that's what's so bad for the masses that just watch the TV. It's the tube. They're plugged into the tube of the propaganda machine, which is the US empire, which of course the US empire doesn't want you to know that there was a controlled demolition and 9/11 was all planned, classic false flag to start war, because the US empire is, you know, the army in the Middle East, and you know, that's what empires do. They want to expand, but you know, now that we have the internet, we gotta wake up as many people as possible to expose And so that's what we're in, this kind of information war that's going on, and it's these real journalists like Luke and James Corbett and you know, Jeff Berwick and you know, all the ones that Luke hangs out with, this independent journalism revolution. And so this is kind of one of my first videos, kind of talking about this kind of truth movement. And you know, someone asked me, you're talking about these YouTubers, you know, so if you follow them, like, how do you know that they're telling the truth? And I like kind of paused for a second. I was like, Then I realized, well, it actually comes down to trust. It comes down to you trust what they say. But what I should have said at the time was, you watch TV, these talking heads reading from script, how do you know they're telling the truth? And so it's the same answer. It's because they psychologically, subconsciously trust the mainstream media because, oh, it's CNN, they must be trustworthy, they're a big company. But really, the stories that get brought to the table in these news networks are filtered. It's directly connected to the US empire system and the corporate conglomerate system, which is one, you know, military industrial complex. But anyways, huge news about 9/11 just came out. And so, you know, we're right around the anniversary. 9/11 is the most important event of our time. Let's at least have people understand that Building 7 came down to because of a controlled demolition, and that's the first question that starts opening up a cascade of a million other questions. Yeah.
I mean, I would just say don't believe anyone. Do your own research, do your own homework. We're just providing information for you to decide what you want with it. Don't ever put anyone above yourself. Don't ever put full trust in anyone. But just be aware, like, as a consumer of news and information, this has a huge impact on you. This has a huge defining role in your life. And in life, you'd rather move along in a way where you know where you're going. You don't want to fall into the pitfalls of the bullcrap that they set up in front of us and fall for the bigger lies, because you'll be a victim. The only way to really not be a victim in this life is to fully understand and to research and to look at things independently, and then make up your own mind, make up your own decision from there. So that's my kind of little advice for everyone out there, is just to learn to look at independent media. Usually 90% of the time, independent media has it more correct than the mainstream media. There's no bigger agenda behind independent media, because there's no big money behind independent media. It's just local guys trying to make it by giving you information that is valuable to you, and sadly, information has been weaponized, news has been weaponized in order to push up programming, to manipulate you, to take advantage of you by the bigger systems in our life. And the only way to get out of that is by consuming and understanding information outside of that little control grid slave system.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always been that way ever since the advent of the radio, which is right around the time of Hitler. Actually, the first kind of dictator that was ever able to use a mass broadcast system, and it was his like daily speeches that kind of his propaganda speeches that kind of started that whole revolution. Everyone started to love Hitler because he was a great speaker, and it's still today. People are still plugged into the main tubes. And so I guess some action items that you can do is what I did for my parents. I bought them a Chromecast or a streaming stick for their TV so they can start to watch more YouTube. I bought one for my aunts and uncles to try to just get them to start watching more YouTube, and get them to realize that, oh, there's actually great, smart, amazing content on YouTube, because the older generation, they kind of don't know. But anyways, even for the millennials, get your buddy a streaming stick for their TV if they're watching too much TV. You know, that's a hardcore thing you can do to help someone's life. And also what I will do is I'll link below, I have a playlist of alternative media on different subjects, like truth subjects and, you know, all these different things, of the favorite videos and channels that I watch as far as the independent news, independent media. And so I'll link that below. But yeah, I'm just like so many of us, I'm just a natural curious cat. And so I just love watching people like Luke, because they're coming from the heart, just bringing the truth. And so it comes down to trust. Go on YouTube, watch different people's channels, and eventually you can just, you know, you don't even need to meet them. You can just tell that they're legit. And of course, you know they're legit because why would there's no incentive for them to lie. Whereas with TV, there's incentive for them to leave out stories and to lie, because it's a whole one industrial complex. So yeah, check out my playlist below. Subscribe to Luke's channel. We just did an interview about living in Bali on his channel, so go check that out, the whole digital nomad lifestyle. Before we go, what do you? It's your first time to Bali. What's your take?
There's
on
goods and negatives, but a whole lot better than New York City.
Yes, absolutely. As people are surfing here in the background. Anyway, check out Luke, WeAreChange. He's going to speak in Philadelphia, and then this guy constantly travels the world. He was just covering the Hong Kong protests. He covered the protests in France. He's been doing this for
too long.
Like way over 10 years.
Yeah.
One of the OGs. Probably since like 2000, around 2001, like you've been doing this, like
a little bit further than
maybe
that.
2003 or something like that. Anyways, the OG, live in person, Luke WeAreChange. Thank you for supporting Real Independent Media. Subscribe, and see you guys out here in Bali. Peace.